We have a resolution here, an emergency resolution from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which we have agreed as a council that we would sponsor. I'm going to invite the Deputy Mayor, if he would, perhaps to be the one to put this resolution before council for a vote. Not sure we need to go through the whereases, Deputy Mayor, but it would be good if you read the resolution into the record.
The emergency resolution, May 6, 2010, protect property taxpayers by cost-sharing proposed new federal wastewater regulations. As our Mayor indicated, I won't go down through all the whereases. Therefore, it be resolved that FCM call on the federal government to work with municipalities, provinces, and territories to develop a cost-shared financing and implementation plan for these new wastewater regulations as a part of a long-term national plan to eliminate the municipal infrastructure deficit. Be it further resolved that FCM call on Environment Canada as a first step in the development of a cost-shared funding plan to commit to work in partnership with municipalities to establish a thorough and objective estimation of the frontline costs and trade-offs of meeting the regulations and to resolve outstanding technical and implementation issues.
We need a seconder, and it is seconded by Councillor Lane. Any question or comment on this? I'll call it. All those in favour? Contrary-minded? The motion is carried. Thank you. This will be forwarded to the FCM and the appropriate members of Parliament for their consideration. We have a letter here, which, by the way, I'm delighted to reference today with you. It is a letter to the City of Mount Pearl congratulating the City on our selection as a winner of the Municipality or Regional Waste Management Committee category for the 21st Newfoundland and Labrador Environmental Awards. I'm delighted to tell Council that yesterday at lunchtime at the Pippi Park, we attended the 21st annual luncheon and awards gala, and Mount Pearl received an award of recognition there for our outstanding work in environmental matters. This both involves our efforts vis-a-vis waste management, our efforts vis-a-vis the regional wastewater program that has now been implemented in the region and our leadership in that, our efforts on the expansion of our EcoChill system and the LEAD program, which, as you know, we just announced a couple of weeks ago in partnership with the province of Newfoundland. Recognition as well over our cleanup initiatives, over our constant berating of our citizens about all things environmental. And one of the things that we were congratulated on yesterday was our natural environment versus our built environment. We have an awards program for urban design. Now we have an awards program for gardens, for landscaping, for those things. We were congratulated for incorporating the natural environment into all of the initiatives that we have undertaken. For that reason, we were awarded this award yesterday, and coming with it was a $1,000 check. And we as a council have to determine what we will do with the $1,000 check, and the money has to go towards some type of environmental program. Now, I said, I advised the people at the luncheon yesterday that the seven of us have a difficult time agreeing on what we should have for dinner. So coming up with how we'll spend the $10,000 should be a little fun challenge. And, I'm sorry, the $1,000 should be a challenge. Yeah, it was 10, but I'm keeping 9. It should prove to be interesting. But I wanted council to know that that had been done, and as I said yesterday in my comments, and I'll pass them on to council now as well. I think we have to recognize here that it is the initiative of our staff and the people who work for us that make this kind of thing an outstanding success. We go to get the award, but it's really not ours. I think it is to their credit. And we have to pass on to our staff in some way, through our management team perhaps, our appreciation for the initiatives that they undertake on an ongoing basis in the city to keep our environment and all issues related to our environment uppermost in our minds. But I thought I would pass that on, given the letter was here inviting us to the luncheon, but it happened yesterday. We are getting a very nice plaque, by the way, that's coming that we'll be able to put on display here at City Hall as well. Anybody with a comment on any of that? unless you got a suggestion for the $1,000. I'm saying youth opportunity fund, and have a youth group do some kind of an environmental project and have it funded. There's one thought. Mr. Denine thought we should do the same thing, but maybe through seniors. And then I said, well, we're going to let the council decide. It'll be up to you guys. Moving on, in other correspondence, we have a letter from the Honorable John C. Crosby saying that he couldn't attend the Police Exemplary Service Medals presentation here today. We regret that. We also have a letter here from the Mount Pearl Frosty Festival, passing on again thanks to the city for our continuing support of this wonderful family event. It is true what they say in their letter. The festival has become a focal point in the city of Mount Pearl. There is no better way to beat the blues during the coldest winter months. And they are advising through their chairperson, Agnes Murphy, they're looking forward to participating with us again in 2011 in Frosty Festival. Any comment or question on the correspondence tabled here today? If not, we are going to move to committee reports at this point. We're going to start with the Community Services Committee, which is first up in the book. So Councillor Walsh, if you would.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Just a couple of items, and one that was outside of the council kit, which is for information only, that I'll just highlight. The first one deals with the allocation of funds for the Grand Concourse Authority. As council is well aware, Grand Concourse actually undertakes about $600,000 worth of work on our behalf this year, and this first motion is really to allocate about 25% of that money. They do a lot of work on our trails, walkways, of course, the former railway bed, and this year I think a large concentration will be focused on the Team Guju area, where they've also done quite a bit of work for us in the past. So with those things in mind, Your Worship, we're always pleased with the work and the level of cooperation that we receive with Grand Concourse. We'd like to be able to provide them with 25% of the funding so they can continue to carry out this work, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by Councillor Lane. Question or comments?
Yes, Worship.
Councillor Lane.
Yeah, just a quick question. Just wondering, Mr. Lush or Mr. Osmond, the piece of work that was supposed to be done off of Emerald Drive, is that part of this? You may recall that last year we had an issue raised by an individual he lived on Sapphire Crescent, and right behind him, right off Emerald Drive, there's a section, there's an unofficial trail, if I can call it that goes over to the Pearl Gate Shopping Centre. It's a path beaten down. Council had basically decided by motion of council that we would install a trail. We sent Mr. Ford, I believe his name was, a letter to that effect telling him we were going to do it. So I'm wondering, is that part of this, or where is it? Can anybody answer? If not, you can check it out.
Your Worship, we have allotted some dollars in linear park development. In that particular location, I'll have to leave it pending because my understanding on that piece of property is we're into a power easement. And we had a meeting with Newfoundland Power, and there's still some unfinished work with the pole line coming through that easement. So we didn't really actually determine where exactly we would actually get a walkway, or indeed if we could actually get a walkway on that location. So I'll leave it for now, and I'll bring back a report on it because I'm not sure if we can actually go into the area at this point or wait for Newfoundland Power to finish off their work coming out of the Southlands area into the Glendale substation. So there are issues with the easement going through that particular location.
But to the question that Councillor Lane asked,
there is funding.
It's not part of the Grand Concourse Initiative.
We did allow some funding in the overall total, as Councillor Walsh alluded to, of $600,000 for linear park development. We didn't designate exactly which linear park we could do, so possibly it could be done there.
So it could possibly fall
Yes.
under that at some point if it goes forward.
Well,
Councillor
yes,
Lane?
Your Worship, I guess just again to reiterate to that point that Mr. Forward was advised in writing that it had come before council, it was going to be done, and so I would ask that if it's not in the plans, that it get into the plans. Thank you.
Moving on, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
To Councillor Lane's point, Your Worship, within the next couple of weeks, Councillor Lane will review whatever impediments or obstacles are there in terms of the easement, and we'll get back to you. It was actually only today, I think, it was forwarded in an email that I was reminded of that particular issue, and was not aware that there were some other issues and impediments to the development of that.
Would it be Public Works now?
It probably would be, actually. Yeah. Probably not. It would more likely go to Scott's committee and Paula, I think.
I'm thinking, just to interrupt you for a second, gentlemen, if I might, I'm just thinking that on this particular file and on this particular issue, which you've referenced, Councillor Lane, input from Mr. Osmond's critical, I think, because he has the history. But yes, it should flow through Public Works.
Yep. And if it's related to Grand Concourse Authority, which is a different thing, that does go through community services.
And that's why both should work on this.
So we'll talk about it and see where it goes from here. The second item, Your Worship, probably breaks all of our hearts. Any expenditure on the existing swimming pool, given the fact that we're well into the plans for the development of a new recreation complex, is money that we consider poorly spent, but in this case, absolutely necessary. We did have a section of the roof of the Mount Pearl pool, approximately 16 by 16, that had been seeping water and leaking and providing, obviously compromising, in fact, even the integrity of the water into the pool. So it had to be addressed immediately. We went to get a few quotes, had not heard back from Atlantic Roofing. We have two. This is kind of an emergency thing, and so we're recommending that we go with Flynn Corporation for the amount of $11,809 to effect those repairs. They also did give us a quote of $28 per square foot for any other additional. So once they get in and explore exactly what needs to be done, if there's something else that needs to be done, that would have to be included and covered off in their quotation as well.
Right.
And based on that information, I ask for the support of council, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Just a reminder, it's in the information that was forwarded to everybody outside of the kit. Tomorrow is the startup day for the Summer Student Park Patrol. Council are well aware with the initiatives of the Park Patrol here in Mount Pearl. And in fact, our Park Patrol program has probably been the one program that has been emulated in various parts of Newfoundland, Labrador, and in fact across the country. Because they primarily work as the eyes and to some extent the feet and the ears of the police, and primarily police our trails and parks and walkways and open spaces. They are going to be located at the boathouse in Powers Pond. It seems like a good and fairly central location, and it gives them access to the trails immediately. They've already received their 2 days of training, and I acknowledge the input of the municipal enforcement people in offering that training. They're always very well equipped, and we always get tremendous young people, Your Worship, who work as part of that program. So again, they start tomorrow. They should be visible with their vests and their lights and on the trails, and whatever support and encouragement we can give them, we do. And they do a tremendous job for us, particularly during the summer months when students are out of school and and on the trails. They keep people moving. They are not obviously law enforcement officers, but they are very valuable assets in terms of providing information to the police, to our own municipal police, and of course to the constabulary as well. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that they're beginning tomorrow, and we'll look forward to that.
Start tomorrow.
Thanks very much.
That's good. Thank you very much. Total is 10, isn't it?
This year it's
12. We have 12 this year. That's very good. Okay, that concludes your report, Councillor Walsh.
thank you.
We'll move to corporate services. Councillor Lane.
Okay. First of all, committee is recommending approval of a $100 donation in support of the Lupus Walk a Block, scheduled for June 13th at the Reed Centre, and it's noted that the mayor or his designate will be attending the event. So I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Tessier. All those in favour? Contrary-minded?
I will abstain from voting on the executive of the committee.
Make note that Councillor Stoyles is in a conflict. She serves on the executive of that organization. All those in favour? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Next one, Your Worship, we received a request for donation on behalf of the Mount Pearl members of the Newfoundland Labrador Girls Under 16 Provincial Soccer Team. They're going to be attending a national tournament being held in July. In accordance with Council's policy, the committee recommends approval to provide a $200 donation to the team in support of the 7 Mount Pearl players that will be on that team. The players are Julia Windsor, Jessica Nixon, Megan Earl, Hannah Noseworthy, Stephanie Myers, Courtney Sharon, and Nicole Emberley. I so move.
Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next one, Your Worship, the committee recommends approval of a $100 donation in support of the ALS walk scheduled for June 13th at the Reed Centre. And it's noted here that Councillor Aker will be attending that event on behalf of Council. I so move.
Moved and seconded. I notice both of these events are happening June 13th at the Reed Centre. Can that be right?
Yeah. One is in the morning, one is in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, we have the modified invoices for approval on the orange sheet, totaling $949,674.21, and I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Any question or comment regarding invoices listed 1 through to 8?
Your Worship, just a note there that certainly more than half of that relates to our ongoing work on the new arena.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
which is coming along quite nicely.
We will call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion's carried.
Next one, Your Worship, committee is recommending approval in accordance with the professional development training policy for the Deputy Mayor to attend the Business Retention and Expansion Conference in New Orleans from August the 14th to the 17th, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Question? Comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded?
We'll be
Motion
deferring number 4 for now.
Okay.
And the last item, Your Worship, yeah, it was actually in the announcements or whatever. We put it here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it here.
Committee is recommending that we enter into an agreement with KAP Consulting Inc. to assist with the updating and revision of the city's emergency management plan at a cost of $10,000. The proposed time frame for completion of this project is from the date of approval till May of 2011. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Tessier. Question or comment?
Yeah, Your Worship, I guess just to make a very quick comment, this is, as indicated here, to update our emergency plan for the city. We do have an emergency plan in place, but like every plan, the time has come for it to be reviewed and updated accordingly. Since the plan has been put in place, of course, we've seen a lot of growth within the city in our Donovan's Business Park as well as the Kenmount Business Park and so on. And as things change, the plans need to be revised and updated as well. So that's the purpose for this expenditure. Thank you, Your Worship.
Here, here. Thank you. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Moving along, Economic Development, Communication, Tourism Committee, Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. We just have a couple of items. The City or the Economic Development Department is in the process of doing an economic development strategy. And back in early January, I guess, we sent out proposals and we only received 2 submissions. And we re-advertised and we received 8. And the CEO, the city planner, and the manager of economic development reviewed. It was 8 submissions that came in, and they shortlisted them to 4, and now they're recommending that Sierra Planning and Management will undertake this work at the cost of $61,543.80, and our committee is recommending that as well, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Stoyles, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. So we resubmitted. We've got 8 different companies, and we're going to go with the one that, in actual fact, had the highest bid.
Yes, Your Worship.
Because this is, of course, professional services we're talking about. And I guess that's why we could do that. They're all, I have to say, they're all really within.
They're all within.
They're all within the ballpark.
Within
They're all within the
$1,500 of
ballpark.
each other.
And so this Sierra Planning and Management Company will help develop the new economic development strategy.
Yes, Your Worship. We're hoping it will be done within the next 3 months.
Before we call the question, Councillor Walsh, if you would.
I just want to remind you, Your Worship, that we had a capped amount on the 61,000 is, in the ballpark. But the reason they're so close is I think we had an allocation of $60,000.
And so they all went for it.
So they all went for the target.
Okay, that explains it.
And why wouldn't you? So this is not actually a tender; it's a request for proposal.
Yes, an
and we did
RFP.
identify that this had to be completed within a price of about $60,000.
Yeah. Do we have a time frame?
I think it's going to be done within 3 months, Your Worship, or that's the request we.
Within a quarter, we'll say.
Within a quarter, yes.
All right, we'll call. Anybody else with a question or comment? We'll call it then. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Our motion is carried.
We have one other item, Your Worship, and that's upcoming conferences, and we're recommending that the Economic Development Manager will attend the Canadian Retail Conference in Toronto, and that the CEO will attend the oil show in Calgary, and this is already budgeted for in our budget, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
These are both conferences that we attend on a regular basis.
Yep. And that concludes economic development.
Yes, Your Worship.
We are going to go to Public Works. And who have we got? Economic development, Public Works. Councillor Tessier? You want to do that first?
Well, that's the only one I have, actually, because the other ones are infrastructure, or engineering, sorry.
Okay.
Outside of the kit, we've got an invoice from the City of St. John's. It is our share of the regional fire deficit for 2009. Our share is 16.66% of the deficit, and this is really an FYI to let you know that amount, our share of that amount is $130,030, $130,038.30, and that's just for council's information.
Okay, we don't have to do anything with that other than pay it.
That's it.
No motion necessary? Thank you, Councillor Tessier. Anything else from Public Works? No? Okay, we'll go to Engineering Services then. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item is the 2010 street upgrading. This has been defined as contract CP1. We've received 3 bids for the upgrading of certain streets here within the city. The lowest bid was $2,260,522.06 by Modern Paving, and we received 2 other bids in the amounts of $2,493,000 as well as $3,078,000. Our consultants and our staff have reviewed the bids, found them to be in order, and I am moving that we award the tender to Modern Paving in the amount of $2,260,522.06, HST included.
It is moved by Councillor Aker. It is seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Question or comment?
Yes, Your Worship. Question. Or
Councillor Lane.
maybe a comment, I don't know. I see the streets that we have listed here. I'm just wondering, will this be posted on our website, or could it be posted on our website? Because, of course, there are people that will be wondering, is my street getting done this year or not? So if we already know who it's been awarded to, which streets are going to be done, I see no reason why we couldn't put it on the web, and
I would think it would
people could go in and just have a look to see if their street made the list or not.
Sure. Councillor Aker.
All right, the next item we have, there's the leak detection program. There's $25,000 allocated in the 2010 budget for the leak detection program, which basically is all about proactively reviewing the city's infrastructure, trying to identify leaks long before they get out of hand. And all of the city's water infrastructure, as I understand it, gets done on a 5-year cycle. So rather than do the whole works every 5 years, we allocate so much each year to monitor for leaks. Prior to the implementation of this program, we were seeing our usage being around 8 million cubic meters of water per year. And since the program was implemented, we're down to about 6.5, despite some of the extra pressure on the water system caused by development. So in addition to conserving water, this program also saves the city a bit of money, because I think it's around 53 cents a cubic meter is what we pay for water, 23 cents a liter or cubic meter. Yeah. So as a result, by spending this small amount of money, we more than save that when we conserve water. So what we're recommending here is that approval be granted to engineering services to utilize that $25,000 budget allocation, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
Two items out of the kit, Your Worship. One has to do with the demolition of the water reserve structure over off Olympic Drive. We have 5 bids that were received for this particular piece of work. The low bid is with Granite Management Limited in the amount of $49,292.89. That is HST included, and I move that Granite be awarded the contract to demolish the water reservoir.
It is moved and seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Question or comment? Councillor Tester, question?
Just very quickly, if they all received the same specifications about what was required, there is a massive discrepancy in the lowest bid and the highest bid there.
Yes, there is.
I'm just wondering if there's any rhyme or reason for it.
Director Lush?
Mr. Lush, any rhyme or reason for that?
Yes, there is, Your Worship. Sometimes the concrete can be used as backfill, so if somebody has a purpose for it, there's an aluminum structure inside that keeps the roof up. Maybe someone's creative after the scrap. So I'm certain there's a reason behind it, but sometimes they recycle the concrete. Different people have different disposal costs. That's where you've seen the difference. Different
Okay.
labor costs.
Okay. And Granite Management met all the specs to do this job?
Yeah,
problem.
verified that they're core certified and they have workers' comp clarification and they have the bonding in place. So
So they're ready to go.
we're ready to go.
We'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The final item, Your Worship, has to do with the asphalt crack sealing tender. I want to make the note that there's $15,000 provided in this year's budget for this. We have a sole bidder of Crown Contracting, the amount of $22,102.80. And before I move the motion, I'm just looking for a little explanation as to if we have 15 in the budget, and basically we're going to try to do it within budget, how we end up with a summary bid of $22,000.
It's a unit bid, so the original units that we gave would translate into $22,000. So we just reduced the number of units. It's $1.65 linear meter for crack sealing. So we just reduced the number of meters that we do, and then you get to $15,000.
So are we confident, though, we'll get the right amount of crack sealing done this year? Okay, fair enough,
Yeah.
right? All right, so the motion is that we award the tender to Crown Contracting, and that further to that award, the project quantities be reduced to accommodate the $15,000 budget, basically to put a cap on the work.
It is moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
That's it?
That's it. We have an item here outside the book, which is, I believe, going to be planning, I think, is it?
Yes.
It says planning. It's going to go to planning. We'll call that committee right now. Deputy Mayor, floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item here has to do with a request to acquire some city-owned property, open space property, actually, adjacent to 8 Ingerman Street. The Planning Department forwarded this to the Director of Community Service for review, and the Director of Community Services recommended that a license to occupy the land currently fenced adjacent to the west side of this particular property be considered. The Planning Department supported this recommendation, as does the committee, and as such, the Planning and Land Use Development Committee recommends that approval be granted for a license to occupy this particular open space property for a 5-year term for a total cost of $50, and I so move.
It is moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment?
Yep.
Councillor Lane.
Yes, Your Worship. I have a little concern about this one, to be honest with you. And my concern is this. I think we all are familiar with the history of this particular property. There used to be a walking trail there. We took the walking trail out. We ended up being left with a portion of no man's land at the top of the walking trail adjacent to this property owner. The property owner is basically saying, look, take down this piece of fence, this piece of chain link that's here, so that I can gain access to it to cut the grass, clean up any garbage or whatever which might be put there by people. The resident wanted to purchase or lease the land. We said, no, you can't purchase the land. So now we're going to basically, and the property owner really has no use for this piece of land per se, other than the fact that there's a little piece of no man's land sort of stuck right onto their property, which nobody can get at to maintain, to clean up or whatever. So if the person can't buy the property, it's really of no use to them. So why are we charging $50? I mean, basically all I'm saying is take down that piece of fence, do what we said we were going to do about taking out that asphalt in case at some point in time in the future we wanted to reinstate that piece of land. I think that's the reason why we wouldn't sell it to begin with. But we're basically going to charge somebody $50 for the pleasure of being able to clean up our property for us. So fundamentally I got an issue with that. So if we need something to make the agreement stick, charge them $1.
Further comment? Further comment? Deputy Mayor?
Yep, well, my understanding was that the residents, and perhaps Mr. Osmond can speak further to this, they requested this property, I guess, for their own use, but they wanted to buy it. But as Councillor Lane alluded to, the open space in the area, given the modifications that have taken place here over the past number of years, if we were to sell this piece of land, you'd have one entrance, basically, into this particular open space. So there's some plans to further develop that. So the thinking was that, if this person wanted to, avail of this land and use it for their personal use, rather than sell it to them, that we would allow them to lease it for a 5-year term in case the city had future use for that. Did you want to speak anything further to that, Mr. Osmond?
Just to say, Your Worship, that the property in question, once the fences come down, the property would become the right to occupy would go to the property owner. And the policy of the city is $50 for 5 years.
Does the property owner have the right to fence?
Oh yes, they can fence it. They can put a shed on it. Anything that can be moved off the property if we determine in future we need to use it. So you can't put something on it you can't take off. You put a fence on it.
You can't put something on it you can't take off.
It's already fenced. It's already got a perimeter fence. This fence is internal to where the whole walkway was. So once that fence comes down, this property owner would have total enjoyment of that space, that square footage of space that's now fenced. And the policy of the city is $50 for a 5-year period. We have several of these licensed to occupy documents in place and agreements in place. And on a 5-year rotation, they pay $50 for the future 5 years and so on and so forth. So it's what they've agreed to in the past, and that's been our policy.
The area does end up being incorporated. I guess what I'm saying is that the area ends up being incorporated into the actual property of the owner to a great degree. They get to enjoy it. It's not a matter of we charge them $50 to clean up our land.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
I understand you. I
Your
understand.
Worship?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're deviating from practice. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I want to make sure everyone gets a clear picture of what's going on here, okay? I realize we have situations in the city where somebody asked to utilize a piece of city land because they had a purpose for utilizing that piece of city land. Mr. Antle on Forest Avenue comes to mind. He has a shed, and I believe we have a 5-year agreement with him because he wants to utilize the piece of city property where there's a water line to place his shed on, right? So there's a purpose for it. The Hydes here have no purpose for this piece of land, okay? This is not like they want to use the land. They have a shed already. They have a fence already. But in taking out the walking trail, what we have created, what the city has created, and I understand it was created on behalf of them because they were the people that were having problems with kids on that trail to begin with. But in essence, by closing off that little section, we have created a piece of no man's land that they really don't want. Like, they don't need to utilize it for any reason whatsoever, other than the fact that you have this little chained-in piece of property next to them where garbage can accumulate, where the grass grows up long, and different things like that. It's unkept. There's no way to access it. We can't even access it unless we're going to jump over the fence. So they're saying, take it down. We'll maintain it. They understand now they can't purchase it. They understand the reason why they can't purchase it. Just take down the fence and we'll maintain it. But I don't understand why we would be charging them a $50 fee for that purpose. That's all I'm saying. Charge them $1 to make it stick. I don't see any big deal.
Anybody else have any other comment? Any other comment on this, Councillor Walsh?
The only question I have, Councillor Lane, have the Hydes specifically asked you on their behalf to negotiate a better price on this, or is this just something you're advocating? Because if it's a standard $50 policy, I don't know what the big deal is. I don't recall seeing from the Hydes or hearing through council or committee of the whole any issue, concerns, or problems with the $50.
They requested the land.
Sorry? They requested. Yeah, the land was requested, and we did review that in committee of the whole. And at the time, we did not have any submission from the Hydes asking that the $50 be waived. If they don't have an issue with it, quite frankly, I don't understand why we would deviate from our policy or why we would have an issue for it. Every one of these pieces of land where we have rights to occupy all have different extenuating circumstances. The Hydes is different than the gentleman that you alluded to, Councillor Lane. But for me, if this is our policy and it's 5 years, $50, it's a very, very reasonable cost. In this case, I don't see the need to deviate from it unless there's some fairly compelling reason why, and I don't understand that there is. And I don't believe that the Hydes have made representation officially through council or have written any correspondence requesting that. If that's the case, I'd support just leaving it as it is and leaving well enough alone.
Okay. Anybody else with a comment? No. Anybody else with a comment?
I was going to speak, Your Worship.
Councillor Stiles?
I was going to say...
We're all still, now remember, all right, we're all still discussing the main motion. Councillor Lane at no point made an amendment here. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Your Worship, I totally agree with Councillor Walsh. I mean, we have policies in place for other land all across the city, and we have a number of other people that do the same thing, that lease land. And if we have a policy in place for $50, and the Hydes did request that the come in and take advantage of the land, and even though there might be no benefit at the end of the day, I mean, they could probably put a gazebo or do something out there. I mean, I think we should keep our policy in place. Once we change the policy, we decide today to change this policy and give this piece of land to the Hydes and make a motion or amendment to the motion and give it to them for $1, then we're going to have everybody else come in and do the same thing. And we have a reason for our policies. We put our policies in place, and when we put them in place, we put them in place for a reason, and I certainly support the motion.
Okay. You eloquently said on an amendment had there been one. We're speaking to the main motion. Councillor Tessier.
I just want to make another point as well. You alluded to the Hydes cleaning up the property. We have lots of area in the city that doesn't belong to property owners, but if it's adjacent to their property, they take it upon themselves. If they're mowing their backyard, they're probably going to mow the open space as well. In any event, it was one of your points, but it was a point.
We're going to conclude debate. Deputy Mayor.
And again, to summarize, I mean, if the request is there, if they want to request this piece of land for their use for a 5-year term, that's what the request is. That's what we're bringing forward. So I'd like to call the question, Your Worship.
We will do that now, having heard commentary from everyone on it. All those in favor of awarding this piece of land under the terms and conditions as outlined in the city policy, say aye. Contrary-minded?
I would like to note it for the record, Your Worship, I support offering them the land. They did not ask for a 5-year lease. This is what we're telling them. That's not what they asked for.
What I need is a yay or a nay.
I support it, but I want it noted for the record that I think that Donna would have been adequate.
Is it a yay or a nay?
It's a yay because I wanted to get the
Thank
land.
you.
But
Okay.
If I disagree with the fee, I want it noted. Thank you.
All right. Next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item has to do with a municipal plan amendment and a rescinding of the motion with respect to 5 Centennial Street. The Planning and Land Use Development Committee recommends that the Council Minute 10-05371 be rescinded, as this matter was inadvertently brought forward prematurely prior to the receipt of a release from the Department of Municipal Affairs. The review and release of the Minister of Municipal Affairs on behalf of the province is required prior to the Council's adoption of a municipal plan amendment as per the Urban and Rural Planning Act. As such, it is recommended, and I move, that motion number 10-05271 be rescinded. And I so move.
It is moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Aker.
I just want to note there, Your Worship, that there seems to be a typo, whether it's 371 or 271. I think it should have been 271, although in the motion it says...
no, it should be 271. 10-05271.
Okay.
Any question or comment? Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, has to do with a proposed name for some streets in the Moffat Road West subdivision. Two street names have been proposed by Mr. James as Pollux Drive and Truxton Place, and these are the names of two American Navy vessels which sank near St. Lawrence during the Second World War. It's been run by the St. John's Regional Fire Department. They've been approved and being held for the city. So as such, our committee is recommending approval of the street names Pollux Drive and Truxton Place for the Moffat Road West subdivision development, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. So these two streets will be called Pollux Drive and Truxton Place. Pollux and Truxton. Okay, that's good. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
And the next item here, Your Worship, is an order that was issued with respect to Eastern Propane on 185 Commonwealth Avenue, concerning the matter of non-compliance with the conditions of the development permit as issued by the City of Mount Pearl City Council dated October 19, 2009. Eastern Propane and the use of a portion of an existing building and property at 185 Commonwealth Avenue for a workshop occupancy and storage use. An order has been issued on May 28, 2010 by the Office of the Director of Planning and Development. The issuance of this order was undertaken in accordance with the delegation of authority as per Section 109 of the Urban and Rural Planning Act 2000 and Council Minute 0906463. And a copy of the order is attached here, and I'm recommending confirmation of the issuance of the order. And I so move.
It is moved and seconded. Any question or comment? Because what we're basically doing here is simply confirming
Yes.
what was contained in the original order. I'm curious as to why we have to do that.
Well, council has the authority to issue the order, but we made some changes to the to our regulations where we gave that authority to staff members to issue the order, because in the past,
Okay.
it had to come back to council, and sometimes there was a significant delay if they had to wait for council approval.
Right.
So some months back we changed that approach where we issued the authority or gave the authority to staff members, and under that new approach, a confirmation of the issuance of an order is brought forward to council.
Okay, so we're confirming what we've told staff. All right, that's
Yes.
fine. I understand.
Okay.
Anybody with a question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item has to do with our building permit lists for the time period of May 15th and May 28th, 2010. And during this time period, residential construction was valued at $913,200, while commercial building construction permits during the same time period came in at $965,816, bringing the total to $1,879,016, and I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
Other,
Okay, note that Councillor Stiles is not voting, given some of the permits issued to a company that she has involvement with. Okay?
two items, Your Worship, outside the kit. The next one I will deal with is a notice of motion. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act, 1988, take notice that in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the text of the Mount Pearl Development Regulations, 1988, that, if enacted, will revise Schedule C, Industrial Light Use Zone, to include the following condition. Satellite dish antenna. Where satellite dish antennae exceed the maximum diameter or height requirements of this use zone, the authority may use its discretion to consider the increase in the additional diameter or height of the satellite dish antennas, provided the application is processed in accordance with Regulations 10 and 22. The intention of this amendment is to provide Council with the regulatory framework to consider development proposals for satellite antennas that exceed the maximum diameter or height requirements of the industrial light use zone.
That will be discussed at our next meeting. Yep.
Yes. And the last item I have here, Your Worship, has to do with an environmental assessment for the proposed hotel site at Olympic Drive. This is to advise that Baynou Plant Group Limited has been engaged by the City to conduct an environmental assessment of an area of the former landfill on Olympic Drive designated as the site for a proposed hotel development. The estimated cost for this consultation is $70,000, excluding HST, and I recommend that this amount be accepted.
It is moved and seconded by Councillor Aker. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
And that's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the committee reports as well as all of the agenda items, I think, outside of the report. I'm going back now to the minutes of the last committee of the whole. Where did we start new business last time around? New business. That one doesn't tell me. Councillor Tessier, we started over there. We're going to start over here this week. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to talk a few minutes about the speeding on Jersey Avenue, and I know during the election campaign last year, some of us heard that from many of the residents there, and recently this spring, we've had a few more complaints. And
We have.
I understand that the issues are with committee. I was just looking for a status update, like where does that stand in terms of the progress that we're making. And the only reason I bring it up now is that summer is upon us, and I think this is accentuating some of the anxiety there because there's more kids on the street this time of the year.
I can speak to that very briefly, and of course,
Councillor
if Mr. Lush has something else to add as well, he's welcome to. I think what we discussed at committee level so far is to do an assessment, to put the traffic calmer down there to actually do a count. So we have hard stats to prove how many cars are there, how many cars are speeding. And then we can make a recommendation based on that information. I'm not sure if that's been done yet. Has it been done yet, Mr. Lush? If it hasn't, it will be in short order because it is at our committee level. And we've got police officers in the gallery. For goodness sakes, you can instruct your people to throw a bag of tickets at people who are speeding. We'd be all over that too.
Good guy, bad guy.
Mr. Lush.
Yes, Your Worship, I got the information actually just before I came, so we'll be able to discuss it tomorrow in committee.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so it is moving along, making progress. Anything else, Mr. Aker?
Yes, and thank you to both. Just a notice to the residents, I probably could have brought this up during the Engineering Services Committee, but it wasn't on the agenda. The Commonwealth Avenue Bridge Project is going to start up now on June 9th. And regrettably, things have to be repaired. Things don't last a lifetime. It's going to take approximately 4 to 6 weeks. The lanes will be closed to minimize, but we will try to minimize traffic disruption as best as possible. So that will begin on June 9th.
We're going to be down to 2 lanes, right?
2 lanes while they work on one side of the bridge, and then the other 2 lanes when they work on the other side of the bridge.
They're going to love us. We're going to be their best friends.
Throw Park Avenue into the middle of that now.
Well, now that you said that, Councillor Lane, that's just my quick question is Park Avenue. Director Lush, you give us a quick update. Are the asphalt plants open, and when's
the final lift
when
going
would
down?
we expect Weir's Construction to be able to go back to Park Avenue and complete, I guess, the north half of it?
Your Worship, I'm expecting confirmation that they will start sometime next week. So the asphalt plants are up and running. They usually wait a week or two before they actually...
Of course, we've had no weather.
No, so it is weather dependent. You can't put the top coat on unless you have the asphalt. So what you'll see first, again, is the raising of the manholes.
Yeah.
So the manholes get raised 1.5 inches, and it's a bit of an obstruction to traffic. So if you're traveling to speed limit, it won't bother you. If you're at excess speed, you will have a problem. You may bust a tire.
Here we go.
Thank you.
It's got to be done. Got to be done. And finished, because the people of Park Avenue deserve a break.
Yes, they do. One last thing, Your Worship. Last Thursday, May 27th, I attended the annual general meeting of the Mount Pearl Minor Hockey Association, where they elected a new slate of officers. I'm going to list some of the names here because I think these people deserve the credit. They're volunteers, and they run a very high-level hockey association, one of the best in this province. Wally O'Neill is the president of the association. Gonzo Bennett, the vice president. Diane Roberts is secretary. Derek Coffey is the new treasurer. Paul Fifield is past president. Guy Courage is a director. So is Darlene Corrine. Audrey Whalen, Joe Fowler, Roger Hounsell, Denise Fagan, Jocelyn Butt. And I want to say congratulations to each and every one of them and commend them for their volunteer services as basically in providing a premier program for the youth of our city. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir, very much. Councillor Walsh.
Your Worship, I'm just going to focus on one thing. I had several things, but in the interest of time, I'm going to just mention the fact that this morning at 10:30 I participated and represented the city at the first really ever regional press conference for our regional water committee. It was held at the Bay Bulls Big Pond site.
Yep.
Went very well. Obviously, the intention is to get the press out. I think we have done an incredibly good job, Your Worship, over the last number of years with effecting improvements to the regional water service. Unfortunately, last year, and the timing wasn't great, it being an election year, and really highlighted the water shortage and the ban. Unfortunately, we haven't done as good a job in communicating the messages to the public. There's been a lot of good work going on for quite a number of years, and will continue to be going on, particularly in the next couple of years. I'm not going to get into the details of it. I will table a report for council, and I'll make a comment on it perhaps at the next meeting of council. But
excellent.
It went very, very well. We were well represented, and I think the approach that's been taken by this new regional committee, which is a much broader-based regional approach, is the way to go. And I just want to bring that to the attention of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Councillor Stiles?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple of brief things. Of course, through our regular maintenance program, we have been doing water flushing throughout the city, and of course it has affected our area today, and I received a number of phone calls today from residents because of discoloration. I've been in contact with our engineering department, and in chatting with some of the staff up there, they were recommending to residents when we're doing water flushings that they shouldn't be doing wash and running the dishwasher and everything, because it does suck some of the dirt back in. And we have had a number of calls and complaints today from residents in certain areas because of our water flushing program. So I just wanted to inform the residents and the public that when you see our crews out actually doing the regular maintenance, that it's wise not to do some of the regular stuff you would do in your house. Well, it might be a bit inconvenient for that day, but we certainly want to inform residents that most of the time, 90% of the time, it doesn't affect, but it is that 10% that it might cause problems.
Okay.
The other item I want to mention that I received a number of phone calls on the past week is animals being left out in the night time. I've received at least 2 phone calls from residents who, because the weather is getting good, people put their cats and dogs out in the evening time and leave them out overnight because I know last night was a bad night and it probably wasn't done, but we want to make sure that people remember to take their animals in, even though the weather is nice and that. But I know we have received a number of complaints about dogs barking 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and we certainly want to encourage residents not to do that.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor? Councillor Lane?
A couple of things. First of all, I'm not sure if council had any complaints about this or not, but I had a couple about the lights at Commonwealth and Smallwood Drive. And so I understand now when talking to our city engineer that that's a temporary thing, that there was a traffic accident there, I think, that did some damage to the pole. I don't know if any of you noticed it, that the long arm that would normally be across Commonwealth Avenue, sort of a traffic light in each lane. Now there's 2 traffic lights on a little short post, and they're both right together to the right. So it's a little bit confusing to some people, but I understand in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be another 2 months perhaps until that's done, because there's issues in ordering a new pole. These poles are not something you can just go buy at Walmart.
No. How was the pole damaged?
Apparently it was a car accident. Somebody actually struck the pole and damaged it at the base, and so the whole pole has to be replaced. And of course, it's not just a regular light pole. It's one of those with the big long arm that the traffic lights hang on, right? So it's going to take us probably 3 months to get 2 to 3. It's been out for a month, I understand. It'll be another 2 months because the only place we can get them is out of Montreal somewhere. They got to be ordered, and it's not even like there's a one-size-fit-all, because the bases are different and the alignments for attaching them are different, and there's all anyway. So I guess just for the information of council and everyone, that I'm told it'll be at least another 2 months, but people need to be aware of it, because it is simple enough if you're in that centre lane, not even to see the lights type of thing,
Right.
So just to let people know about that. Next issue I just wanted to bring up, and this is something I raised, I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, and I just want to find out what our policy is on it, but the issue was raised to me about the washrooms. We have washrooms in Powers Pond, down by the boathouse, public washrooms. We utilize them, I think, for our summer camps, for the canoeing and all that stuff. But other than when there's programs taking place, the washrooms are locked up. So therefore, if people are going for a walk or whatever, they need to use the washroom. Here's public washrooms that aren't even accessible. And I believe the same thing applies to the washrooms on the outside portion of the St. David softball hut as well. Not in the softball hut, there's public washrooms there as well. So I guess the issue is, if we actually have these washrooms, I think the reasons given in the past is, well, if you leave them open, well, someone's going to vandalize them.
Right.
But I don't know if that's a good enough reason. I mean, you know, you could make that argument for
Works
everything
for
you
me.
have. Someone could vandalize it. I know that the issue came up in the city of St. John's last year, and that was the same reason given, and the St. John's Council said, well, listen, we got them here for a reason. We're going to use them. If that means a staff person's got to check them daily or whatever, so be it. So I would like to refer that back to committee, particularly when it comes to seniors. I mean, it's fine even for some younger people, but when we talk about age-friendly cities, that was actually one of the things that was in that document put out by the World Health Organization. It talked about having numerous benches around the walking trails so you could take a break, and it talked about the need for washroom facilities. So I would like for us to have a look at that.
Okay.
The next item was the summer camp program. And I'm just wondering, and perhaps we can just refer, unless Mr. Osmond has an answer for me now, I did mention it to him yesterday as well. I did receive a complaint from a lady yesterday who was trying to get her child into the summer camp through the Reed Centre, and basically you had to get there early, get a number, and so on. And I guess her issue was the fact that she ended up waiting for a period of time while there were non-Mount Pearl residents who got in there ahead of her, and actually, you know, were ahead of her in the line in terms of the numbers. So she's waiting while there's people from another community ahead of her. Last year, she informed me that she had a situation whereby she ended up being put on a waiting list. Again, knowing that there were some people not from Mount Pearl, non-residents, who had their children registered. I guess it speaks to the fact that we have an open registration process, and I do understand that apparently, you know, it's never really been an issue for us in terms of fitting the kids in. We've managed to come up with additional counselors or different additional positions and so on to be able to accommodate kids in the end. But if you are put on a wait list and, you know, you're working and so on full time, you know, you're depending on is my child in or are they out? And so timing is very important. So I know the City of St. John's last year passed a policy for all of their recreational programs that it would be a residency first rule, so that day one would go to residents of St. John's to give those people, the taxpayers, the first crack at the times, whether it be the best times or the optimal times or just getting registered. And then after the first day or second day or whatever the case might be, then it was open to other people in the region to fill any available spots that was left over. So that was the issue the lady raised with me, and I'm going to raise it again. And I don't expect an answer or decision of council right now at this moment, obviously, but I would like to have it referred to the appropriate committee.
I think we should let Mr. Osmond address
Absolutely.
it. I do believe that the policy you're looking for exists. Mr. Osmond?
Your Worship, the summer recreation program registration right now, we have no waiting list. Everybody is confirmed in their sessions. I guess there might be an issue with what programs are restricting people to in terms of residency rule on the first day. The discussion we had on residency rule centered around our capacity. And our capacity at the pool is limited to 700, pretty much 700 participants in lessons. And in the pool, we have a big issue because we definitely have a capacity issue. We can only have 700, that's it. So there's definitely going to be a waiting list. When it came to the summer program, we've never restricted the summer program to residency. We've always had pretty much open base on the summer program. People come from Mount Pearl, Southlands, and some from Paradise and the fringes of Paradise. It's never been a problem. Last year we did run into, as Councillor Lane alluded to, another meeting I had with Councillor Lane. There was a problem last year when we had issues of student ratios to our accepting people into our program. We corrected that, as he alluded to as well, where we hired on more staff. The general nature of the program is that, for the most part, we can generate enough revenue through grants and through registration to pay our staff and actual cost of the program, which is the case. So it is cost recovery. Right now, at this point in time this year, we have no waiting list. We're into our second day of registration. Registration will be ongoing throughout the summer. People will come and go. People will drop out and come in, and so on and so forth. So we don't anticipate at this point that we have a problem. But if we want to go back and revisit the residency rule for all programs, then we should open it up for all programs and have that discussion.
At the moment, we only do that for the pool,
Correct.
because we've never had a problem with the others. Okay, thank you.
Well, that would be my request, Your Worship,
Yeah, it's
that
gone
we
back
would
to the, it's going back to the committee now then for
Yes.
a review at this request.
Yes, and
right.
while I'm glad to hear it's not a problem right now. I do have a minute from last year when it was raised, and at that time there was 190 children that were on a waiting list. So I'm glad that that's corrected. I think the other thing we have to bear in mind is that as Southlands continues to grow, as the, dare I say, Brookfield Plains, it turns my stomach to say it, but anyway, Brookfield Plains continues to grow, there's going to be more and more non-residents, which they're all welcome. I have no problem with non-residents using our facilities, but our residents have to come first. They're the ones that are paying for it. The last item, Your Worship, I wanted to raise is I was out around Powers Pond there the other day, and I did note that there continues to be issues similar to what Councillor Stowes was talking about with animals, but people not cleaning up after their animals. So I would simply put it out there that people are responsible. It doesn't take much to take a Dominion bag or a plastic bag with you when you go out for a walk with your dog and clean up the mess. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I don't think so. Councillor Tessier? Nothing? Okay, that being the case, we basically are ready to adjourn, but we're not going to adjourn tonight. Instead, we have a special presentation that we're going to do tonight involving the police exemplary service medals. It is why in the gallery this afternoon, Council, I want to welcome the new Chief of Police of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, Mr. Bob Johnston, as well as Superintendent June Layden, both of whom are well-known in Mount Pearl. Don't know if we can claim either of them as Mount Pearlers these days. Bob was, for sure. I don't know if he still is. And June we've had with us for the last 480 years. So we're delighted that they could be here with us. What we're showing you now are our municipal enforcement officers. These are their new uniforms. And my God, you guys look great. That is fabulous, guys. I got to tell you. I'm going to turn things over. We got a very special ceremony to do here. I'm going to turn things over to our our Chair of Community Services, Councillor John Walsh, and he's going to MC this very special presentation for us. I'm going to want you guys to come up around here so that the camera can look at you as well, okay? And then we're going to turn things over to you, Councillor Walsh, if you would.
Thank you very much. I also want to extend a welcome to the many visitors who I assume are families and friends of the two recipients of Police Exemplary Service Awards for Mount Pearl. It is certainly a particular honor, Your Worship, as you've already mentioned, to have the newly proclaimed Chief of Police for the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, Chief Johnson, with us. He is clearly a favored son of the city of Mount Pearl.
He
Grew
is
up
indeed.
here. And Chief Johnson, I did happen to capture the clip of the Cable 9 program in which you did a fabulous job, and we were so proud of the fact that you were proud of your roots here in Mount Pearl. So
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much for that, and welcome. I think this is the first time you've been here in an official capacity as new Chief of Police, and I think they've made a tremendous choice. As the Mayor's already mentioned, the Superintendent, June Layden, is no stranger, not to Mount Pearl, not to the region, not to policing, and always continues to be a tremendous supporter and is actively involved in policing for many years, and of course was instrumental in developing the community police program here in Mount Pearl as well. Welcome, Superintendent Layden, as well. Particularly important for some of the officers being provided with their exemplary service medals, of course, are some of the family, friends, children, maybe even grandchildren. So welcome to all of you as well. We have a fairly simple and straightforward ceremony. I want to give you, first and foremost, though, a little bit of brief history on the Police Exemplary Service Medal. It was actually created on the 12th of August, 1983, by the Governor-General of Canada, and it was really intended as a means to recognize police officers who have served in an exemplary manner, characterized by good conduct, industry, and efficiency. Recipients must have completed 20 years of full-time service with one or more recognized Canadian police forces, and of course, the pieces of exemplary service, good conduct, industry, and efficiency are an integral part of their recognition. Most countries, Your Worship, have as part of their honor system some form of an official award for tangibly exposing and recognizing national gratitude for long and commendable service, particularly in the fields of endeavor involving potential risk as our police officers enter each and every day. Canada's exemplary service medals recognize the men and the women dedicated to preserving Canada's public through long and outstanding service. Your Worship, I'm pleased to present to you today two candidates for presentation for Police Exemplary Service Awards. And I'm going to ask if these two candidates could just move further up next to Your Worship, next to the Mayor, Alan and Boivin. And let me read a little excerpt as well. But before I do that, Your Worship, and have you present the medals, I want to welcome as well, of course, Superintendent Bob Shanahan, and of course all members of the municipal and police force who do look particularly spiffy today in their new uniforms. I think they're fabulous. Let's show a round of applause to them. I understand that Constable Hines has actually had a little bit more than a little input into the development of the design of these uniforms, and I want to commend him as well. If you did, Constable Hines, you did a tremendous job, and obviously they look very, very sharp. First, let's deal with someone who's no stranger to municipal policing in Mount Pearl, Staff Sergeant Alan Piercy. I'm going to read a very brief bio. Staff Sergeant Piercy was hired by the town of Mount Pearl at the time in 1974, and he received his training to be a municipal police officer by the Newfoundland Constabulary, now the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary. During his career, he spent 2 years at Traffic Court as a prosecutor when dealing with the Mount Pearl Traffic Court cases. Sergeant Piercy is responsible for many of the operational procedures now in place in Mount Pearl, such as police procedure, as well as the training program for the Student Park Patrol, which you actually highlighted, Your Worship, as part of today's meeting. He held the position of Vice President of the Municipal Association of Municipal Enforcement in the province for 2 years, and in 2003 he was promoted to the rank of Staff Sergeant and remains the officer second in charge with our police force here in Mount Pearl to this very day. Alan, of course, is a longtime resident of Mount Pearl, and anyone who's involved in municipal policing in Mount Pearl, Your Worship, the name and the face of Alan Piercy is pretty much synonymous with policing here in Mount Pearl. So I'm happy to present to you for presentation of this Exemplary Service Award, Staff Sergeant Alan Piercy. Excellent. Okay, thank you. And we will get some pictures with the Chief of Police from the RNC and others afterwards. We also want to make sure that we extend the opportunity, and Dan has agreed to do that, for any pictures with families. And I'm sure it's something that you want to get some pictures taken for families as well. Next, it's my pleasure to present to you, Your Worship, Senior Constable Boivin Crummy. And I'll read again a very short bio. Constable Boivin Crummy served in the RCMP for 7 years prior to joining municipal enforcement here in Mount Pearl. He was posted in the provinces of Nova Scotia and in Newfoundland as part of the RCMP. During those years, he carried out general detachment duties and was involved in many community-based activities and volunteer work in his community. He's currently employed with the City of Mount Pearl and has been employed here as a municipal enforcement officer now for 20 years or more. In his role, he's been very active in community life in many aspects. During this period of time, apart from his regular duties, Senior Constable Crummy has been involved with the RNC and the park patrol programs with respect to the supervision and guidance of these staff members. He's also been involved with the Community-Based Policing Committee for a number of years and conducted talks associated with Scouts, Cubs, and many other groups and service organizations within Mount Pearl. He takes great delight in giving to multiple charities and organizations, helping the poor and the needy in and around his community. He resides in Mount Pearl and is married with 2 children, and we are delighted once again to present an Exemplary Service Medal to Senior Constable Boivin Crummy. Your Worship, we're going to get an opportunity at the end for some pictures, but before doing that, I'm going to ask you if you'd like to bring some greetings as Mayor to these recipients.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh, very much. And yes, I would like to bring a few greetings. I remember back when I first started on council, Boivin was around, I think, just recently then. Alan was around then. And I remember when we made the decision to expand and grow a municipal police force to try and enhance things within our community. It has been a welcome addition to the city of Mount Pearl. Probably the thing that is most special about the service provided by our municipal enforcement officers to our community is not only do our community citizens now recognize the valuable role that they play and that we recognize, but more importantly, even the police force that we work with on a day-to-day basis, the RNC, recognize the value of these officers that have worked in collaboration and in cooperation and in partnership with them ever since the inception of the concept of our having our own municipal police came into being. The leadership of Superintendent Bob Shanahan has to be recognized here today. Thank you so much for your work and your years of service in policing, generally, Bob, and to us in particular. To these 2 exemplary police officers that are being honored here in our gallery today, may I say to those who are following along and those who participate with them on a day-to-day basis, that it is communication with community that makes all things possible. I learned this from some very important officers, 2 of whom are here today. The fact that the new chief of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary is here with Bob Johnston today, and Superintendent June Layton is here as well. To recognize and to honor your years of service, gentlemen, is a tribute to them, and is a tribute to you, and a tribute to the partnership that we have built. On behalf of the 26,000 citizens or so who make this city home, I want to thank all of you officers for your service to our community. And I want to thank also the RNC for their service and partnership with us as well. Thankfully, this is only going to get bigger and better, and I got to tell you something. I love those uniforms, guys. I don't know who designed them in the end, but you really look sharp. You look like cops. Congratulations, everybody, and we're going to invite you all, obviously, to stay for a little reception, and we want to get all of you with some pictures with our friends from the RNC here today. Like I said, we should celebrate not just your longevity as officers, but the valuable input and contribution you have made to the growth of our community. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think it would be a little remiss if we didn't avail of the opportunity with the Chief here, perhaps to come forward, if you wouldn't mind, Chief Johnson, and just make a few remarks, first of all, and then we'll get some pictures.
Come on up here, Bob. It's the easiest way to do this.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors,
born and raised in Mount Pearl. My mother still lives on Sunrise Avenue, the house that I was born, so it is home, regardless of where I may live. But in terms of why we're here today, it's an honor to partner with the Municipal Police Service of Mount Pearl. Mayor, you're correct in terms of communication and partnerships. We as an organization, the RMC, cannot provide effective police service to the community of Mount Pearl unless we work together as partnerships. We all have a vested interest in safer communities, and it takes all of us together to make that a reality. There's more to safer communities than apprehension. Just a piece of what you're doing tonight in terms of good government, dealing with the issues that may be insignificant to the masses, but to the individuals are critical and they're important to their well-being and their sense of community and where they live. So all those things are important. The RNC, as most people in the room are familiar with us, we're an organization that is constantly changing, but it's important to reflect on who we are as individuals and people. Over the last 3 weeks, since May 1st, I've had an opportunity to speak to many, many people about the RNC, and the RNC is really all of us. We are Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. Our history dates back to 1729 when Captain Henry Osborne identified 6 districts, 6 magistrates, and 31 constables, and we have evolved from there. And I think we'll continue to evolve. But it's important that we get together on this, and it is an honor, Mayor, to participate in an event like this. I have a great deal of respect for these people in the room, some who I consider dear friends. Alan and Boivin I've known for a long time as friends and neighbors. And Bob, who was one of my mentors in terms of my policing career in the RNC. These officers here, I'm sure we'll get to know each other and get to know the younger generation of police service. And that's important to us as officers to make those connections, build those relationships. Because when there are crises or issues, that you can rely on those relationships. So on behalf of the RMC, I just want to congratulate Alan and Boivin on dedicated service. I've had an opportunity many times to give out the Police Exemplary Service Medal, and people need to realize it's not a long service medal. It's an exemplary service medal. And as the councillor just read out, Councillor Walsh read out, it's about efficiency, industry. It's about doing the right things, not on a once or twice, but consistently over 20 or 30 years. And that's a community we need to acknowledge the working efforts that both of you officers have put in. And on behalf of the RNC, I just want to say thank you for your service. I look forward to many more years of working together and keeping on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, and thank you again for taking the time to be part of today's ceremony. Over the last couple of years, I think it's safe to say that the stature and the contributions and the level of respect of our municipal enforcement officers has really grown, and I think grown in significant part because of the contribution of Superintendent Shanahan. I want to thank you, Bob, and I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Constables Hine, Gravette, and Tilly for being here and for sporting these fabulous new uniforms. These uniforms are just part and parcel of an entirely new, emerging police force here in Mount Pearl. I think Superintendent Shanahan will be the first to acknowledge, without the continued and ongoing support of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, their stature and their contributions would not be as measurable as it is. So it's a tremendous and tremendously effective partnership, and we appreciate that. With that, I'm going to bring to a close the official ceremony and welcome everybody once again and ask you to join us outside after some pictures have been taken for some refreshments, and we're happy to be able to do that in honor of these two officers this afternoon. And once again, Alan and Boivin, very, very worthy recipients, and congratulations once again. So thank you all very much for being here. We're going to get some pictures taken. That will be a much more informal part, and that will be done outside in the foyer. So thanks again for being here and participating.